as you outlined. And that was the biggest question for me, Greg, not whether or not Lamar, I mean, I guess whether Lamar in structure, I should say. We know what Lamar is. He came out of Louisville. Offense that's has been pretty noon. Who just as an objective football fan has been really cool to see.
I suppose
Morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone, live from London, England. The Admiralty here in Trafalgar Square. It's all decorated with Titans stuff. The Titans, the home team here in this international series where we are happy to be providing you coverage from. Lucas is back in the studio. I'm hanging out here at the pub. Bub, the environment is great. It's electric. The weather in London, surprisingly acceptable for this time of year, and we're happy to have everybody back home involved. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to jump in, we'd be happy to have you at any given point. We also have the F&M Bank chat, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, where you can interact with everything that's going on here at the Admiralty today. How are things back in Nashville?
They are.
They are? Are you surviving? Are you thriving? And Bert was accusing me of just being here to hit on women of a certain age that he described as geriatric, I believe. But as far as the environment back at home base, what is morale like? What are the vibes like?
Vibes are great, as always. Was at the Preds home opener last night. Vibes are great.
Oh,
there.
You went?
Yep, absolutely. Great crowd.
Did they win? I haven't seen anything.
3-0 win over the Seattle Kraken.
Excellent. So the Preds get a big win. Titans trying to get a win over the Ravens at Tottenham Stadium in just a couple of days from now. We're obviously going to spend the next couple of hours talking about it. Coach Dave McGinness, he's in London. He is actually out at the practice facility, about an hour and a half outside of town, and they will continue to hang out there. They had a walkthrough today. You're going to hear from Mike Vrabel and Ryan Tannehill, who spoke to the media while doing a little bit of international availability. So you'll hear that comment here in just a second. But beyond that, Lucas, I enjoy this trip so much. It's the second time I've done it in a professional capacity. This is the seventh time, I think, in total that I've been in London with the opportunity to do some stuff. And I know you haven't been here specifically yet, but this is such a great atmosphere. I know that people question the idea of, the viability of American football in Europe or overseas, basically, but they do. It's been so long that they've been running this international series, and they've got it refined to such a point where the atmosphere for fans who are traveling from the States to London specifically has always been so good. They've got it set up well here for the home and away fans to be able to enjoy a little bit of a tailgating type of situation as well, and they'll have all kinds of cool events for the respective fan base. I've seen a lot of Ravens fans in the airport in Heathrow this morning, saw a lot of Titans fans on my flight yesterday as well. And obviously, Titans were here not that long ago, 4 years ago. Mike Vrabel's, 5 years ago, Mike Vrabel's first season. It was a very, very close loss in regulation to the then San Diego Chargers. Phillip Rivers, a failed two-point conversion that would have won them the game as opposed to kicking a field goal, or rather kicking an extra point to taking it to overtime. and one of the more dramatic results and dramatic coaching decisions of Mike Vrabel's career. Now, he made some jokes this week at the podium about the idea, what would I do differently from the last time that we were in London? Well, we'd get the 2-point try. And, how that goes remains to be seen. But based on the comments today, I know we'll hear from Mike Vrabel here in just a second. Based on the comments today, it seems like they're pretty comfortable with the process thus far. Hell, Arden Key has been over here a bunch of times with the Jaguars. I didn't know this is Ryan Tannehill's, fourth trip in total between Dolphins, having gone 3 times over the course of his Dolphins career. So, for the most part, these guys have it covered. Young guys obviously have to make an adjustment, and there's a lot of youth on the Titans roster. But still, I think that much ado about nothing, the whole travel situation. And I know that's being widely discussed. I mean, it has been widely discussed throughout the course of the week. Did Diana Rossini accuse them of being a poverty franchise, Lucas?
No,
is that what I saw on Twitter?
No, it's not.
Is that what I saw?
No, it's not.
Are you
what
sure?
You saw.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
What was the tweet?
Diana Rossini took to Twitter yesterday to comment on how differently the Titans and Ravens have approached this. She said, all week long, I've been watching clips of the Ravens practicing and talking in London. They left on Monday. The Titans are leaving this afternoon. I'm not sure if this is a financial decision or a difference in travel philosophy, but these two teams attacked this wildly differently.
So, accused of being a poverty franchise is the way that I understand it.
Sure, go with that.
But for them, I think the comments from Lamar are something worth paying attention to, right? Where he's saying, even a couple of days ago that he's not been adjusted to the time change. And it's a 6-hour difference. I got off the plane this morning at 6 a.m. British Standard Time, which is midnight, just a little after midnight back home in Nashville. And that is a significant difference in the way that your body reacts to things, certainly. And I'm just sitting here talking about football on the radio, much less playing a football game, going through all the emotionally exhaustive things that a football game, that competition brings, and they'll have to find a way to manage that, certainly. But Mike Vrabel spoke earlier today about the idea of hitting the ground running when he met with the assembled media. I don't know how much international media made its way out to their training ground where they are currently, or did get a day of practicing. Coach Mack is out at Titans practice, and he'll be able to provide us with some insights. That I also saw a clip of DeAndre Hopkins doing some international media, speaking fluent German with a German reporter who was here asking him questions. I knew that he was bilingual. I did not think that he was that comfortable in the German language. It was really, really cool to see. So a lot of guys flexing some international muscles.
That's amazing.
Here.
What
have you seen the clip?
No, but I didn't know DeAndre Hopkins spoke fluent German.
He is a bit of an international man of mystery, bud. He's he operates in the fashion world very much. He's obviously very, very tied in or tuned into the goings on in English Premier League soccer and international football, which I made sure to correct my parlance for my Uber driver from the airport, Polish gentleman who was talking to me very much about and kept trying to correct for me. Kept saying American football and then soccer, which I could see visibly pained him on his face. So I started calling it football, and he seemed much more comfortable in our conversation this morning.
Even if soccer is a British term, but we'll ignore that.
What, you want to take a fight? You trying to pick a fight while we're out here? I'm by myself. I don't have backup, but I will fight this fight on behalf of you.
I am very much up for the fight of gatekeeping terms for any sport, for any nationality. Call it whatever the hell you want to. Okay. But yes, soccer is a British term that they got mad at us for using. But don't you appreciate
when people at least make the effort? It's kind of like when you go to another country and you don't speak their language, but at least, if you've been studying poorly Rosetta Stone or something like that, at least to make the effort, even if you sound like a toddler trying to speak the native tongue, at least there's effort there. That doesn't matter to you?
Absolutely. And if anything, just to communicate better, just to have less obstacles when getting a message across. But it is a fact that soccer is a word invented by British people and that there are TV shows and programming with the word soccer in them about that sport, and they get very mad at us for using it.
Well, it's completely fitting that Lucas would choose the time that he is over thousands of miles away to pick a fight with the natives, and we will see if we can continue to try and make sure that. Rhett Bryan and the Titans radio crew just showed up at the Admiralty pub. They're catching up with Ramon outside the building. But yes, we'll see if we can't try and spread Lucas's messages to the masses abroad. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in if you want to. Your thoughts on Titans Ravens. We're going to talk some Vols, Texas A&M in Knoxville this weekend as well. I did get a question, Lucas. I do those airport AMAs, just especially yesterday when I had as much time in a layover as I did to kill. Somebody asked me where we were watching the Vols A&M game over here tomorrow, and I had to say, to be honest, it's pretty low on my priority list of things that I'm going to do on my off day in London.
What are you going to do?
Well, I'm going to go see the Winston Churchill War Rooms. That's a tour I'm really excited about. I've had that book for a couple of weeks now. Tonight, I am going to, as soon as the radio show ends, it kicks off at 1:45 Central Time, so that's 7:45 here locally in London. I'm going to go to the England-Australia international friendly match tonight at Wembley. I'm fired up. Kaharski texted me and said, asked me if I wanted to go. I've not had the opportunity to catch an actual football game when we've been across the pond, so it'll be a first experience for me. Is there anything that I need to know? Is there something that I need to wear? Am I going to get beat up if I wear the wrong things? You need to inform me before I head to Wembley as a fan. I don't get to do many experiences. Just a casual sports fan here.
Better to let you live and learn.
Okay, that sounds about right. 615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation. We're broadcasting live here in London, England. Titans have arrived to take on the Baltimore Ravens at Tottenham on Sunday. We are going to continue the conversation throughout the course of the show. We'd be happy to have your participation live from the Admiralty here in Trafalgar Square. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Whole bunch too. Ikais and DeAndre.
Welcome back to the Admiralty here in London, site of where the Titans are going to take on the Ravens, technically host them at Tottenham Hotspur over the weekend. Sunday coming up. What, you haven't had enough of the song? It's a tremendous song. I honestly, it's been in every promo that we've been running for 2 months now, so I thought, maybe there might be a slight fatigue, but London Calling, always a banger.
I feel obligated.
Well, yeah. I mean, so are we doing a theme today, or is that the extent of your obligations?
We'll take any and all submissions for London songs at Lucas Panzik on Twitter.
Okay, you can fill up his mentions there. Meanwhile, you can jump in on the phone lines as we broadcast live here at the Admiralty. 615-737-1045 is the number. Talking Titans and Ravens. How about Murphy, who's calling us from Murfreesboro?
What's up, Buck?
What's happening?
The Clash is totally underrated. But that quarterback scares me, Buck. I kind of like our new little wrinkle with our second running back. I think he's tough as nails. But that quarterback scares me. And I don't know if we can do it, but can we all talk with British accents for the rest of the show?
Lucas, you're shaking your head vigorously no. I think that, well, did we talk about this on the air at any point this week? I feel like not. You know that I used to have one in my bag, a British accent. I went to a British international school when we lived in London, so from about K to 3, had a little bit of an accent that I was carrying around. I don't think I could recreate it right now, though. I think it's been awash in every other place that I've lived in since. But I don't know that would be my best effort today. But the callers are welcome to use accents today if you want to. That'd be fun. 615-737-1045. The quarterback scares you, is the analysis. Well, I mean, he looks a bit scared himself, being honest. Just when you watch him, and the amount of pressure that Ryan Tannehill's faced in the last couple of years, not just from a standpoint of scrutiny and discussion and, all right, we're drafting backups or guys who are potentially there to replace him, not in one season but back-to-back off seasons. But the pressure just generally that he has faced over the last 2 years, where he's one of the most knocked down quarterbacks in football since the start of the 2022 season. That he scares you is probably because he doesn't look like he trusts things out there entirely. I think we've seen him settle in a bit. I don't think that it's enough, and I think that it is fair to expect him to be able to give you more within the system that they're asking him to run this year. We talked about the Ravens and the idea of getting him early. When I jumped on from the airport on Zoom yesterday with Brad Hopkins and Lucas, and that the Ravens are an offense right now that have some flaws of their own. They've been working through drops. They've not been crisp as a special team, or excuse me, as a skill position group around Lamar. Lamar looks great, but it's not been enough because they haven't been executing, right? Execution. It was a tired phrase, but it's something that really is at the core of all of this. For as much time as we spend breaking down football and all the different ways where you can exploit matchups. The Ravens should be a better offense than they are, and yet they've been let down. The Titans, should they be a better offense than they are? There's not evidence for me to say that I believe that they could be more than they have been to date. But I do think to find some kind of way to level out a little bit. Consistency is such a word that I'm tired of saying. You're tired of hearing it. You're tired of hearing your coaches and players talk about it. But at the end of the day, that is the biggest thing that this football team lacks. We can talk about talent acquisition and trying to reconfigure the roster on the fly the way that Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel had to do. in Rand's first offseason, but, at the end of the day, it is there for them to be able to execute at a higher level, whether it's Tannehill or otherwise that's had miscues in certain moments. They have yet to display evidence that they're capable of it. I don't know, Lucas, if there's an offense that I trust more than the other, though, in this particular game. Baltimore or Tennessee, I to be honest, the more that I watch the Ravens, the more that I think that there are the issues aren't similar, but they are having a similar result in ways that I think they're being let down from time to time, trying to play against competition that they're better than in the first couple of weeks of the season thus far.
For them, it's been self-inflicted wounds, right? Like Sunday, how many yards did the Ravens leave out there with 5 drops? Like it felt like over 100, multiple touchdowns, a game that they should have won by multiple scores. So we talked about with the Titans, there's been a couple games where we don't have the but, right? Like the Saints game, but if Ryan Tannehill just, hits Chig, doesn't overthrow Chig or doesn't overthrow Tajay on this Spears or on this play, they walk away winners. But after the Cleveland game, you couldn't say that. After the Indy game, I don't know how much you could say that. They kind of just got beat up front. With the Ravens, it's all been very directly self-inflicted that it's so easy to pinpoint the reasons why they have those 2 losses that they probably should have won both times.
Yeah, there's not a question about the talent of the Ravens this year, right? In ways that we're questioning, I think, the overall talent of the Titans. Now, talent is not good enough to win you a game outright. You have to be the better team, cohesion as a unit, not just a singularly talented individual that's going to will you to a win in this sport. That so rarely happens unless you've got one of the 3 truly special quarterbacks out there doing it. But I think for Baltimore, they have done a lot to try and give Lamar more depth around him, specifically wide receivers. Odell Beckham Jr. hasn't looked any kind of. I wouldn't say he is a good player for them. He hasn't looked any kind of special. Nelson Aguilar is somebody who's out-snapping Rashad Bateman. I know Bert's been going crazy about this. That's a former first-round pick. And we're going to talk about Treylon Burks. I was off yesterday when Lucas and Brad went through the injury report, and I'm sure the news that Treylon Burks was already ruled out, did not make the trip, did not travel for this game. So first-round picks disappointing first-round picks at wide receiver disappointing for a variety of different players or for a variety of different teams. And by the way, the final injury report officially out for Tennessee before we go back to the phone calls. We knew that Burks, Luke Gifford, the special teams linebacker, and Elijah Molden were all going to be out and did not make the trip. After Friday's walkthrough, shall we call it, Jeff and Aaron Brewer were both limited, and both are questionable for the game. So your most important defensive player, arguably, in Jeffrey Simmons, and, the center is as important as any position on the offense, not named quarterback. If they don't have Brewer with a neck issue, that would be troubling to me. He did practice in a limited capacity Wednesday, and today he was DMP on Thursday. And as I said, the official designation is questionable.
But Jeff is not questionable.
Are you sure?
Yeah, the injury report I'm looking at says Jeff was limited today, but there's
no. I'm sorry, Tart is questionable.
Tart is questionable. Jeff does not have a designation.
He's right below Jeff. I got my lines mixed up there. Thank you for the clarification. Jeff is now not.
They did take Odell Beckham Jr., Jadeveon Clowney, and Marlon Humphrey off the injury report. The Ravens did.
Yeah, so you can expect those players to play. Sounds like Jeff Simmons will go. How effective he is remains to be seen, because we know how diminished he looked with that shoulder injury against the Colts. But Teair Tart, questionable. We know how important he is for the success of this football team, particularly against the run. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. We'd be happy to have you at any point. We are broadcasting live from London. Ramon, Kayla, and Will, myself, courtesy of the Ingram Agency. They made our travel out here possible. We're incredibly grateful for them, just as you will be for all of your insurance needs. Go to the Ingram Agency for more information and for more info about our time here in London, because, of course, we'll be here through Monday. You can visit 1045thezone.com/events today. Back to the phones. How about Kyle in Shelbyville?
Hey, guys. Good to talk to you again. Well, we got the Ravens. We know that means Lamar Jackson's coming. So the idea of Jack Gibbons left on an island alone with Lamar Jackson scares the crap out of me. So besides dominant defensive line play, what can Shane Bowen and Mike Vrabel do to make sure that doesn't happen? Because that's a house call. I mean, and we don't really have anybody, I think, capable of spying him. Hooker maybe, but I just want to know y'all's thoughts on this. Thanks.
It's a great question. Thank you for the call, Kyle. So the player that did it the last time, or has done it most successfully, they've always deployed, and as many teams have, that you try to spy Lamar Jackson as often as you can, just because you know you're defending 11 on 11 anytime you play the Baltimore Ravens, even in this new system. Gibbons is not who. Well, the question to me is, how do the Ravens come out in terms of their personnel groupings? Because you'll hear from Greg Cosell on this later on. The Colts, or rather, if you listen to the podcast this week with Cosell, the install that we did on Wednesday, Greg talked about the idea that the Colts coaching staff identified something very, very clearly in the Titans' nickel defense, that they were going to look to run against that particular defensive front, and that they were going to create advantageous situations for themselves by running out of 3 wide receiver sets, so what we call 11 personnel in the NFL. 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. And so they were doing that consistently and with great success. The numbers for Zach Moss I don't have in front of me, out of 11 personnel specifically, but obviously if you watch the game, you know that the Colts running back, the backup running back, had an incredible day, and that the Titans were blocked up pretty well, more summarily than we've seen them, I think, thus far this season. How can they mitigate that? Gibbons and Alshire have to play better collectively. Lucas, is that the worst game top to bottom at all 3 levels of the defense that we've seen them play this year?
Oh, yeah, by far. Right? It's not close.
Yeah, because Gibbons, it's a tough scene for Jack Gibbons where people are praising him on social media, and that's fine. He had done well in the first 4 games. That's not taking anything away from the work that Jack Gibbons had done early in the season, but he's one of Pro Football Focus best grade linebackers. That's being put out there on the internet. There's a lot of talk about, they found another diamond in the rough in Jack Gibbons, and then he looks, they got him on skates basically the entire time against Indianapolis. Kamale Correa is the player in their defense who has had the most success, or in previous years playing for their defense, that has had the most success spying Lamar, and they've done it with a couple of different players, not just an inside linebacker. Kyle brought up the idea of Amani Hooker. Elijah Molden, who is not going to be available this game, is that Roger McCreary's responsibility? Can Roger make an open field tackle on Lamar? Because you're 100% correct. Gibbons and Lamar is a matchup nightmare. Gibbons, I think, to his credit, he's a smart player, and this is going to sound like some of those generalities that people use for white football players anyway, right? Where they call them sneaky fast and deceptively athletic and stuff like that. And I don't necessarily think that's Jack Gibbons, but I do think that he's an intelligent player that understands their defense and is in position more often than not. He doesn't have the suddenness necessarily as an athlete. He is not going to be able to make up ground, and he's not great in coverage. But there is an element of reliability that he does provide, which is why he's out there and starting for their defense this year, as opposed to Monty Rice, who they seem to trust significantly less, or Gifford or Ben Neiman, who we talked about a lot during training camp, who ultimately did not make the 53-man roster. How can they protect themselves against that? Jeff has to be healthy. I hate to boil it down to something that's not a schematic advantage, and they run a lot of different delayed pressures and a lot of different coverage looks that force the quarterbacks to have to think about it for just a fraction of a second longer after the ball is snapped to make sure that they actually understand what it is that they're seeing. And so they'll deploy a lot of that. That coverage diversity to try and throw Lamar off a little bit and try and create not just sacks with pressure outright, but try and create coverage sacks as well. Try and get him to hold the ball a little more. And then to play contained, to not rush too much upfield and let him exploit rushing lanes as a result of that. It's just fundamentally disciplined football that they have to be prepared to practice. Would you call this a disciplined football team through 5 games this year? Because I don't know that I could make that assessment necessarily. On offense, they've had operational miscues. And, if Brewer is, I'll try and find out some more information before the game on Sunday about Aaron Brewer's status and how questionable that questionable designation actually is. But operational issues on the offense have been common throughout the course of the year. And then, the biggest source or the most visible source of the penalties has been Christian Fulton, who stands to again start on Sunday with Elijah Molden being out. But this is not a football team, Lucas, that we would consider overtly disciplined, would we?
Titans are kind of middle of the pack in the NFL in as far as penalties are concerned. When you look at penalty yards against, they're right there in the middle. They've had 255 yards of penalties against them. Worst in the league is Kansas City with 350. Best in the league, the Jets with 167.
Some comments here from the F&M Bank chat as we hang out here at the Admiralty in Trafalgar Square, London, where we are broadcasting, where the morning show was hanging out today, and where I am hanging out with you guys until 1 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. British Standard Time. We're doing an afternoon drive show over here, bud. It's kind of jarring. There's a lot of people hanging. Normally we're used to doing, when we do live shows at restaurants, it's closed for the first hour that we're there at 10 a.m., and then people slowly start to trickle in for the lunch hour. It's fun doing the show in front of a full house. I understand why 3HL's never in studio now. But some comments from the F&M Bank chat. Somebody's asking me, Lonzo is asking, is that Burt behind Buck's right side? Somebody did come up and introduce themselves as a different version, a different variant of Burt over here, Lucas. He's got the flow to match, but not necessarily the recklessness or the charming demeanor, one would say.
Like a Titans fan that knows Burt and listens to the station, or?
Yeah, we've had a bunch of, there's obviously a bunch of listeners who were over here, and they were all, many of them were very kind to come up and say hi while I was waiting to jump on air here and enjoying my mimosa before the show started and taking some pictures here with some people at the Admiralty. But yes, he's a listener. He's intimately familiar with Burt's work. He considers himself to be the poor man's Burt, even though I would say that, if you're comparing yourself to Robert Walsh, there's a lot of different categories where you might come out more successful.
I think people should aspire to be like Robert Walsh.
I think that the world is perfectly fine with one Burt. Music City Malik says British Burt. Yes, indeed. 615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation. But a couple of comments from said F&M Bank chat about Jeff Simmons. If he's not 100%, he needs to sit. He got his bag. He needs to heal up. That's from Knock Trop on YouTube, in the F&M Bank chat via YouTube. That's the approach that they've taken with Treylon Burks. And, I just think that having Jeff out there in whatever capacity that Simmons would be out there is more important to the success or failure, frankly, of this football team than is Treylon Burks right now. Like, we consider Jeff to be significantly more important to the football team at this point in their respective careers than we do Treylon. They can make up ground without Treylon. They have gotten explosive plays without Treylon. Hell, Nick Westbrook-Akina, who was on the radio show on Wednesday, is a more reliable playmaker than is Treylon Burks, which, of course, brings with it its own level of frustration. But, I think that while a lot of you may have the position, well, what he needs to be as physically right as humanly possible before they try and have him play through some things. And the point that was being made is, well, he got paid, don't push it. And I think that there's probably going to be a lot of you who don't agree with that situation and say, well, the money is not just for you to rest on your laurels, but because you are expected to play through these things. And to Jeff's credit, like I said, in Indy, we were never even given an injury designation. I don't think Jeff could stop them from providing the media with an injury designation the way that they do for every other player who comes off the field there. But he immediately came right back in after a brief stint in the blue medical tent on the sidelines there, and acted like he didn't know what the hell didn't know what the hell we were asking him when we came up to him in the post-game locker room and said, "Hey, bud, like, you okay physically? You managing?" And he just kind of made a face like he smelled something bad at us, and basically acted like there's nothing going on there. So there's enough to be concerned about Jeff, just as far as how much impact he can actually make. We can talk about which is the more important player to their success on Sunday against the Ravens when we look through this injury report a little later on, because the Brewer thing immediately raises some red flags to me. We're going to do Lucas's SEC stat of the day. Just because I'm overseas does not mean that we can interrupt tradition. We will do that. We will take your phone calls as well. Live from the Admiralty here in London, I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back live from the Admiralty here in London, England. Titans and Ravens this Sunday. You can hear it right here on 104.5 The Zone across the pond. The Lee Company countdown to kickoff. It's on the air like 6 a.m. Right, Bud? Blaine and Mickey back in the studio. I'll be over the phone for the first half hour with the boys. Kayla Anderson will take the second half hour shift, and then they will take you up until Titans countdown an hour before kickoff here at, or when we go to Tottenham. The stadium, of course, that is hosting this particular London game. Meanwhile, we got plenty of time to talk Titans and Ravens throughout the course of the show. It is time for the SEC Stat of the Day.
Let's talk about SEC, baby. Let's talk about the SEC. Let's talk about Nick Saban and Josh Heupel in the SEC. Let's talk about SEC, baby. Let's talk about the SEC. Let's talk about Brian Kelly and Greg Sankey in the SEC. Let's talk about SEC.
To be honest, the SEC Stat of the Day is almost exactly what we talked about yesterday with Brad Hopkins in regards to this game, and that is Tennessee's #1 rushing attack in the SEC, going right up against the #1 rushing defense in the SEC in Texas A&M, who has allowed just 84 rush yards per contest this season through 6 games. They are 4-2, of course, coming off the loss at home to Alabama. Texas A&M also getting after the quarterback better than anybody in the SEC with 26 sacks on the season. It ultimately boils down to how Tennessee's offensive line can compete up front with Texas A&M's front seven. To me, that is going to decide this game. How often Tennessee can avoid getting into 3rd and longs, staying ahead of the chains, being able to break a run every now and again, something they were not able to do against Florida. The biggest difference in Tennessee's offensive line in Florida and this weekend is Cooper Mays is back. We saw how big of a difference he can make at center against South Carolina, but South Carolina is one of the weaker units up front on the line of scrimmage in the SEC. So the success in that game does not necessarily mean that Tennessee is going to be able to consistently run the football against this Aggies front. And this is just a weird game to talk about because Texas A&M has a talent profile that is much, much closer to an Alabama or a Georgia than it is a Kentucky or a South Carolina or a Florida. Yet, Texas A&M is the unranked team in this game. Tennessee is the favorite in this game. It'll be a Rocket Neyland Stadium, Checker Neyland, but it's just kind of an odd game to get a read on because A&M has the dudes to, at any moment, completely run you off the field and just funk you up front. But will they do it? Obviously, it's not something they've been able to do with consistency up there. Can they avoid turning the football over? Can Jimbo Fisher stay out of their way? But ultimately, can Tennessee run the ball? That is, to me, what decides this thing and whether or not Tennessee will be 5-1 going into Alabama weekend.
What have you made of the running back usage for the Vols this year?
It's definitely sort of platooning. I think Jalen Wright's their best running back. I don't think it's.
Do you think the platooning strategy has been in their favor? Again, these are easy things to secondhand criticize, but I do think it doesn't have to be a Derrick Henry type of conversation with the Vols running back room. But I do think Jalen Wright there is such an asset that I feel like there should be at least more investment in getting him involved.
Yeah, I think Jalen Wright deserves more carries. I would agree with that. Jabari Small is a little more of a bruiser type of running back, but Jalen Wright seems to be the best running back on this roster. He's improved the most. He's got 61 carries, 435 yards on the year, just the one touchdown on a 42-yarder that he broke against South Carolina. So he leads Tennessee in every rushing category except touchdowns, where Dylan Sampson leads the Vols, but he racked up like 4 against Virginia in week 1. These guys all have such different skill sets. Jalen Wright is kind of a combination of what you see in Jabari Small, who's more of a bruiser, and Dylan Sampson, who's more of a scat back. Jalen Wright kind of has that complement, that balance of a skill set with sort of both of those elements. And then Joe Milton could be the X factor in this. That's what Brad Hopkins was saying yesterday. Joe Milton's ability to run the football against Texas A&M to escape pressure. How much do we see Tennessee dial up some designed runs for Joe Milton, which we've seen certainly throughout the course of this season? So Yeah, I don't have any big issues with how Tennessee have used their running backs. If anything, I think I'd like to see some more of Dylan Sampson. I think he really brings something, a spark there. He's only got 36 carries on the year. I think he's the best receiver out of the backfield, I think, out of that group, the most dynamic one at least. But no, largely, I wouldn't say I have a big issue with it. Also, some of that's been based on injuries, and Jalen Wright has been banged up here and there. Jabari Small has had to leave games early. So ultimately, Tennessee's going to have to play they're going to need all three of those guys.
It's an interesting question because you brought up the idea of like they have the dudes, right? And in college football, it feels like you can get away with out-talenting teams more often than not. You don't have to be the better team to pull off that cohesive effort the way that we talk about is so critical. I mean, obviously it's important. You want to play well collectively as a team in college football just as you do in the pros, but you do have the opportunity for more players to make impact plays, I think, in college and have a substantive effect. I mean, they have been less than as a unit, but as you mentioned, Cooper Mays returned to the lineup trying to solidify some things or at least make them a more cohesive unit up front is just so important to what they're trying to do. And so at this point there's no concerns about his health. He's back in the lineup for the foreseeable future. That's where we are with Cooper Mays.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. It'll also be interesting to see Dante Thornton's impact now with Brew McCoy injured. Thornton was nursing a hamstring, missed the South Carolina game. Obviously, there's been a bye week as well. So the wide receiver rotation, another big thing to keep an eye on here. At who gets those opportunities? Chaz Nimrod, Caleb Webb, some of the guys that we've seen in that rotation. Ultimately, what is it going to boil down to? Which three? Squirrel White, Dante Thornton, and who?
615-737-1045 is the number if you would like to join the conversation at any point. That's the first hour of our show here from the Admiralty. Lucky for us and for you, we have two more to go for you to join the conversation. We're talking Titans and Ravens with Coach Dave McGinness of Titans Radio. He's, of course, over here in London as well. He has just taken in a practice for them about an hour and a half outside of downtown London. And we'll hear from Coach Mack at 11:20. The second hour is next.
It is 10:59. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. On Thursday Night Football, Travis Kelce caught 9 passes for 124 yards as the Chiefs won their 5th straight and improved to 5-1, beating the Broncos 19-8. The Nashville Predators grabbed the first win of the Andrew Brunette era in the home opener, 3-0 at Bridgestone Arena over the Seattle Kraken. They will visit the Boston Bruins tomorrow night. In Major League Baseball, the Atlanta Braves were eliminated in Game 4 of the NLDS with a 3-1 loss at the Philadelphia Phillies. Titans are in London for Sunday's matchup with the Baltimore Ravens. Wide receiver Traylon Burks, defensive back Elijah Molden, and linebacker Luke Gifford were ruled out. They did not make the trip. Defensive lineman Tier Tartan center Aaron Brewer officially listed as questionable. The Lee Company countdown to kickoff hits the air at 6 a.m. Titans countdowns at 7:30 before an 8:30 a.m. kickoff with Mike Keith, Coach Mack, and the rest of the Titans radio crew. On Saturday, number 19 Tennessee hosts Texas A&M at Neyland Stadium. Vols coming out of the bye week at 4-1. The Aggies coming off a loss to Alabama at 4-2. Vol Network starts on the Zone at 12:30 before the 2:30 kickoff. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour here live from London. Welcome into the Admiralty. Things are getting off and popping. 5 o'clock here local time. It's 11 a.m. back in Nashville. We could not be more happy to be hanging out here with you guys for the next hours. The Titans and Ravens, of course, on deck. Coach Dave McGinness will join us in just about 20 minutes. We'll break down the game itself with Titans Radio's own head coach. Meanwhile, Vols and Texas A&M, a huge game of considerable consequence in the SEC, and just a weird one to try and project. We talked about it in Lucas's SEC stat of the day, the idea that A&M has so much more talent. They are not, Lucas, I think you said it correctly, they are not Kentucky. They're not Florida in terms of the recruiting, where there's just they have guys, but they're underwhelming a little bit. These are very, very high quality, high caliber recruits that have been in College Station now for a couple of years under Jimbo Fisher and not quite seeing the results, or at least it all come to fruition. Are we no longer in the fire Jimbo Fisher state of mind? Are we writing things out? Because his record on the road, I don't know if you've seen it recently, but it is pretty awful. I saw somebody tweeting out college football stats, pretty sure on my flight over in the early morning hours local time last night. Jimbo Fisher has significantly struggled in big road games.
It is interesting kind of where people stand on that with Jimbo. Like, what happens if Texas A&M, goes 8-4? They already have 2 losses. They have already played Alabama, big game against Tennessee this weekend, but hypothetically, let's say they lose to Ole Miss and one of Tennessee or LSU, and they finish 8-4. Then you're sitting there like, okay, Jimbo Fisher came over here, in 2018 to win a national championship. And here we are at the end of 2023, and this is a hypothetical situation in which that's how the Aggies finish.
Yeah.
And you're looking around thinking, okay, it is abundantly clear we are not getting what we are paying for in Jimbo Fisher. Like, they did not bring him on to go 8-4. They could have kept Kevin Sumlin to do that. So I don't know where it's going to stand, because the buyout will be lower, but still drastically large. So it's just an awkward place to be in. So it's a weird sort of purgatory that Texas A&M seems to be in, unless, they just flip the switch and they win out and they go 10-2, and then there's all sorts of optimism. But if that is what happens, they go 8-4, maybe 7-5, 8-4 and lose a bowl game, then purgatory is the word that comes to mind.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a pretty good chance. They've got as good a chance in Neyland as any team who's playing Tennessee at home this season. You talk about the road games that are going to be pretty difficult coming up after this one. At Alabama, at Kentucky, 2 ranked teams before you get a bit of a break with UConn at home. Missouri, which did not look quite the challenge at the start of the season that we know it to be right now, even though they did suffer their first loss of the year last week, before you host Georgia and Vanderbilt to end the season. A&M's got as good a chance as anybody not named Georgia to cause them problems tomorrow, no?
To cause Tennessee problems, you're saying?
Yeah, cause Tennessee problems at home.
Sure, absolutely. And Georgia, or Texas A&M, I should say, can match up. They matched up with Alabama, right, up front. Held Alabama to 26 rush yards. They sacked Jalen Milroe 6 times. I know Alabama has had its struggles on the offensive line, but you're going to have a chance in every game, or you should, if that's the case. And the defense has improved since a terrible showing in Week 2 against Miami, but there's still issues there in the secondary. The problem is I don't know how much you can take advantage of them if you're Tennessee, the way that offense is structured, if you're not able to run the football. Alabama was not able to find any consistency running the ball whatsoever. They were able to torch A&M downfield, and Jermaine Burton had himself a career day. 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, whatever it was, on 9 catches. But I think Tennessee depends more on the run to get that explosive downfield passing game going with the tempo, and that's kind of where I worry. Joe Milton has to have a big game. I saw Jim in the F&M Bank chat saying Dylan Sampson needs to have more carries. He's a home run hitter, and Milton has to have his best game of the year. A&M will stack up against the run.
Well, so what does a big game for Joe Milton look like? Because I'm at the point where I'm saying, all right, just play clean, right? He's turning the ball over this year. And listen, with a larger sample size, with more attempts, like he was going to throw an interception eventually. Thus far, he has 9 touchdowns to 3 picks on the season, and you know that he's going to give, or at least he's going to give defense more chances. I don't know. Joe Milton doesn't really give a defense a chance to make a play on the ball just because it's ripped into the wide receiver or tight end or running back's chest, as opposed to it being like lofted in there. It feels like it's as hard for a defensive back to try and make a play on a Joe Milton tip drill than it is for a wide receiver or a skill player to come down with it from time to time. But what does a big game from Joe Milton look like? Like, are we talking rushing and receiving? Are we talking about as close to as much a running threat as we are about big plays down the field? Because I just think that's so important, especially when you face a front like this one.
I think you got to make some plays downfield. I think that's where you have to create most of your explosives. But the ideal scenario for Tennessee is what happened against South Carolina, right? I mean, explosives in the run game, obviously staying ahead of the chains, and Milton just has to be fine. And that's what he was against South Carolina. Even though he threw 2 interceptions, largely they moved the ball up and down the field with ease, in large part thanks to their run game. He just can't carry the whole burden of the offense. So that's where I worry about against Texas A&M. But yeah, there's no question he's going to have to make plays downfield. He's going to have to push the ball. There's no Brew McCoy. So who kind of gets the lion's share of those receptions then with Brew McCoy out? I think Jacob Warren starts to take a step forward. The big tight end suddenly is Tennessee's biggest red zone target. But yeah, I think a good game for Joe is finding ways to run the football. A lot of that's on the coaching staff. And yeah, I mean, Tienberg on the F&M Bank chat says he's going to have to put up some passing yards is all I got to say. And the opportunity is going to be there with the A&M secondary that has struggled. But the protection, how does that end up stacking up for the Vols? Emmett says Milton needs to throw for 350 with no interceptions for the Vols to have a shot.
350. Has Joe Milton thrown for 300 yards in a game?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For Tennessee, you're saying?
Yeah.
I mean,
sure?
The last time may have
you say
been
that very, very definitively. I don't know that that's so.
I could have sworn he did against Clemson at minimum. I mean,
I'll look up. No, I think he was under 300 yards.
He has not yet this season. And you know what? You might be right about this. He had 251 against Clemson. That's fascinating. Joe Milton has yet to throw for 300 yards as a Tennessee Volunteer.
That's what I'm saying.
Last time he did it was against your Hoosiers in 2020 when he went 18 of 34, 344 yards for Michigan, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks.
See, that because you said it, you said it without any thought whatsoever,
Yeah, that's
or
fair.
without any, you know what I'm saying? And I think this is a part of the thing that Sparks brought up with us a couple of weeks ago, where he's saying you overestimate, or not you specifically, Lucas, but we as a football consuming public, and specifically as a Vols consuming public, we overestimate Milton's statistical production in game because he has these physical abilities, and because you have to, you assume that he's hitting these chunk plays 3-4 times a game, when in reality, like, if he gets 2 or 3 meaningfully in a football game, that's huge. That's a difference maker. Joe Milton, I think that, because I also, had we not had that conversation with Sparks and me going back and just looking at some of Milton's production after the fact, because I think that Adam gave the most realistic or most grounded evaluation of that quarterback that anybody has to date, or at least that I can remember. Yeah, I do think that we tend to overestimate Joe Milton, what he has done from a statistical output standpoint all the time.
Yeah, that's totally fair. But again, it goes back to what I said on the South Carolina game being the ideal for Tennessee. If not just for balance, but if the run game outperforms the passing game, Tennessee's probably going to win if they don't have to rely on Joe Milton down in and down out. And Tyler continues to remind us in the F&M Bank chat that A&M starting a new quarterback. Max Johnson in for the injured Connor Wegman. He's played pretty well. He's completed over 60% of his passes, 675 yards, 7 touchdowns,
solid,
and 2 picks. Yeah, Max Johnson's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. He's going to be able to operate their offense. Maybe he doesn't have the ceiling, the potential that a Connor Wegman does. Blue chip guy coming out of high school was Wegman, but Max Johnson's going to be fine. This is a huge game for both of these teams. Huge.
Yeah.
Like all the reasons we talked about with Jimbo, because if you lose this weekend, you have Ole Miss down the road, you have LSU down the road. So, you're staring right down the barrel of, if things go poorly, a 7-5 season, which would be unacceptable. It should be unacceptable for Jimbo Fisher at A&M. And if you're Tennessee, this is kicking off quite a slate where you go to Alabama next Saturday, and you go to Kentucky the week after that. And then there's UConn sandwiched in, and then comes Georgia and comes Missouri and the rest of your schedule. So huge game and opportunity for both teams to kind of set the tone for the backstretch of their season. And Tennessee honoring Eric Berry on the field at Neyland Stadium, which will be checkered. So that'll be cool.
How awesome is that? Who's your favorite Vols player of all time, Lucas?
Oh, man. Eric Berry's got to be up there.
I was just going to say, I bet you don't get too far before you mention Eric Berry.
Well, I grew up in a pretty rough era of Tennessee football, So in high school, I was a big Justin Hunter guy, right? Titans legend.
Oh, my God.
Justin Hunter.
A big Justin Hunter guy.
Yeah, there's unfortunately, there's been talent to come through, but the pickings are slim. Eric Berry has got to be up there. That guy almost revolutionized how the safety position is played in a lot of ways.
And on top of all the human interest stuff around Eric Berry and all the things that he overcame to ultimately try and get back into his football career, was able to do so, dealing with that unfortunate cancer diagnosis.
Ramon Foster, of course. My answer is Ramon Foster.
Well, that's just outright pandering. Who were we being accused of brown nosing the other day? Was it Forsberg?
No, it was NWI.
Oh, NWI. Yeah. Well, that was true. But that's years of me having not paid attention to Indiana football that I now feel like I have to make up for the fact anytime I talk to Nick Westbrook, just out of shame. 615-737-1045 is the number. Lucas, I feel like I've kind of already disappointed, because you've asked me how many different kinds of English fare I plan to try while I'm over here, and instead of going for tea or anything that would be more significant across the pond as a beverage, I've just gone with black coffee to start my afternoon, the second half of my day already.
Nah, I don't blame you for that.
5:13 p.m. local time, British Standard Time over here in London, as we broadcast live from the Admiralty. Dr. Detroit is on the phone up next. What's happening, Doc?
John, what an honor that you guys are over there. That is top notch, 100% satisfaction guarantee. Well done.
Well, we are grateful to the Ingram Agency and to our bosses who made us, who allowed us to make the trip. It's always a cool one.
Yeah, y'all make sure to get them a delightful Christmas gift this year, right? But anyway, what sightseeing have you guys done? And then I'll get into my college and pro football.
Well, no, go ahead with the football stuff first, Doc. I honestly just landed this morning and took a nap because I haven't had time to do much sightseeing. Sightseeing tomorrow for me.
Oh, sure. At what, a 6-hour difference over there, correct?
6 hours, yes.
All right, well, this is a catch game for Tennessee. I don't know what the average win and loss is since Texas A&M joined the SEC, but and another one I'm about to come up. That's my catch game in college football. My delightful Louisville Cardinals have got the bye, the weekend off. But the Tampa Bay Detroit game, I'm a little concerned of that. I just got a vibe that that game might go into overtime. And the Ravens and Titans, well, I'm always going to pull from a home-bred team, the Titans, but, they're going up against my Louisville Cardinals, Lamar Jackson. But you know what? I feel like if the Titans pressure him, he will collapse, he will fold, and Tennessee's got a good chance to win this game. Thanks, guys. Enjoy over there.
Thank you so much, Doc. We appreciate the kind words and always appreciate the football analysis. Speaking of football analysis, it's time for Coach Dave McGinness at Titans Radio to break it down. He joins us live from London coming up next. Coach Dave McGinness of Titans Radio hanging out with us on the line. That's what that music means on this Friday. Welcome back to the show, live from London. Coach Mack has been taken in practice. I know the Titans have a lot of different things going on this afternoon as far as community engagement while they are across the pond as well. Coach Mack's visits presented by Two Rivers Ford, powered by Ford, driven by people. Been serving Middle Tennesseans for 40 years, 40 great more yet to come. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. Hey, Mac.
Buck, how you doing? How's downtown London?
Oh, it's phenomenal. I mean, you were a part of this experience the last time we came over here. I know you've done the International Series many, many times in your career, but they are always such gracious hosts. And the Admiralty, where I know the team is having a road rally Saturday night, which I am sure a lot of people are going to be a part of. It's a great setup down here for us to do the show.
Yeah, I'll be at the road rally tomorrow night. We got in about 6:30 this morning. Got out here to the Grove about 7:45, 8 o'clock, and then just started getting acclimated. We had practice out here today. Then I did several interviews after practice out here at the Grove and at the tent, the media tent that they had set up out here. They've also had youth football. I mean, it's a party when an NFL team's in town. So it's been a busy day so far.
So certainly a lot going on. And Mac, there's just it's incumbent upon the individual and the team to put as much as many things in place for guys to have success to keep their routine. Obviously, Titans making the decision to come over on Thursday. Ravens have been over here for the better part of the week thus far. I mean, in talking to guys and talking to coaches over there at the practice, I wasn't able to get over there for the press conferences today. But what's the general sense of the work that they are going to be able to get in, or that they had the opportunity to get in earlier this morning?
Well, they got good practice today. They had a very good practice today. We went over there. We started practice at 1 o'clock. They had a Friday practice. This is a great setup here at the Grove. I stayed here for a week when I was with the Rams. We came in and stayed for a week that time. I've done it several different ways in the 6th time I'm over here. But I mean, it was good. It was a good practice, and then they got buses running from here to downtown tonight after dinner if people want to go down there for a little while. And then of course tomorrow is the walkthrough, and then Mike Keith and I will be at the Admiralty tomorrow, with a bunch of fans, and looking forward to it. It's always a big party when NFL football is over here in London. It's always a huge party.
Yeah, they're packing them in deep already here this afternoon as we get later into the evening at the Admiralty. And as Coach Mack said, if you're in town and listening to the show, or if you're listening on podcast this afternoon, maybe a little after the fact, make sure that you come by the Admiralty to get your the rest of your Titans pregame festivities in, as well, as the Admiralty is the pub for the home team for the London series, and the Titans are in fact the home team against the Ravens. So this game, Mac, Lamar Jackson in this new offense, obviously a lot of missed opportunities for them as far as drops against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But when you watch Lamar specifically, what have you liked what you've seen from him working in this new system for him this year?
He's throwing, excuse me, Buck. He's throwing the ball downfield as well as that throwing it. And as you said, there were 9 drops. And nine really clean drops. So you can't count on that ever again. But with 9 drops, it means that he's hitting. And this is his best start so far of the ball down the field. That's always been the thing about Jackson, even when he was MVP of the league. People would question his consistency of throwing the football down the field. Now he's doing very, very well. And plus, they're still running him, scheduled and unscheduled. And they're still a big power team, pulling guards and running schemes. And so it's a huge challenge for your defense, when you got a quarterback that you've not only got to swarm on the run team, but you've also got to be able to cover the weapons. And he's got some weapons. You can start with Zay Flowers, Nelson Aguilar, of course, Mark Andrews. I don't think gets mentioned with the really top-tier tight ends, in this league. So it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge there at Tottenham. And so, yeah, I've been impressed with what his game is. He looks he looks more relaxed and comfortable throwing the ball than I've ever seen.
Well, and that's so important. Coach Dave McGinness of Titans Radio here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Obviously, Titans and Ravens you can hear on the Titans Radio Network, and specifically back in Nashville on The Zone when they kick off across the pond at Tottenham against Baltimore. The ability for him to basically, or at least when I watch him, Mac, and having the opportunity to talk to you a lot about football over the years and to talk to Greg Cosell on a weekly basis is a great resource. Just how much faster you're able to play when you are visibly thinking less, when you are so comfortable, when your mind is slowing down, that allows you to operate faster. That's at least what I feel like I'm seeing from Lamar in the early goings.
Well, I think you're right, Buck. And of course you hear all the the sports nomenclature that people talk about. Is the game slows down for them. I think at this point in his career, which is, he's been in the league for a while, that you can start seeing that, especially. And I think that Todd Monken's done a nice job of directing some things with the throwing game, coming off of his not only his play action but his cylinder throws too. I think that's a reality of what's going on right now.
Coach Dave McGinness's visits presented by Two Rivers Ford, quality American-made Ford vehicles, award-winning customer service, powered by Ford, driven by people. Two Rivers Ford has you covered. Coach Mac's a customer. I'm a customer. DeAndre Hopkins, Ramon Foster, Don Davenport, so many other thousands of Middle Tennesseans over the years. TwoRiversFord.com is where you go. Zay Flowers, what was your evaluation of him coming out of college, coming out of BC, Mac?
Well, very productive, speed guy, very, very productive. You could tell that he was a dynamic, in and out of his cut guy. He was also, very, very smooth, nuanced in what he was doing. He was an explosive guy. You're starting to see that now in the National Football League also. He was graded and rated very, very highly in this draft for that reason, and it's bearing out now with what he's done so far early on in his after BC career here with Baltimore.
Mac, for the Titans, obviously, they were missing some pieces against the Colts. Jeff Simmons getting his shoulder banged up obviously played a factor in how successful Indy was able to have, or how much success Indy was able to have in the ground game. Specifically, though, Mac, I wonder what you made of how often they were running out of 3 wide receiver sets. The Colts were to try and exploit a matchup with the Titans in their nickel defense.
Well, I don't think there's so much the nickel defense. Most of those runs were inside runs. When you start looking at it, and that's a case of not getting knocked back out of the defensive front, and then not being able to get separation and trying to run behind blocks or being out of your gaps. And when most of those, when they needed yardage, they were basically going up inside. The longest run was that broke side of the Titans, and rightfully so, because of the quarterback. We're playing a +1, and Kevin Byard was cheating towards the quarterback, who was in on that option part of the play before he handed it off. So we've got to. I think the Titans agreed that they have to play better, just run defense. Mike Vrabel always talks about setting the edges and building a wall, and they just got to do a much better job of everybody being where they're supposed to be in those gaps. Those 8 gaps haven't changed since football was invented, and you got to stay in them, but you got to get knocked back and get spread. And the Titans did not get enough of that in that ball game.
Well, we had some callers, and I'm sure on Mac Talk you've had a lot of these conversations as well. Basically, callers asking us, well, what can the Titans defense do differently and things like that. And the reality was, Mac, at least in the last game, they just got blocked up, it felt like.
They did. They got blocked up, and of course, I didn't have Mac Talk this week. I wasn't on it, and was on there with Hoppy because I filled in for Mike Vrabel on his television show this week because of the short week. But yes, there was no magic to it as to why they were successful, and there was no mystery to it as to why the Titans were not. When you're not getting knocked back up front, Buck, and you're not in your gaps, and you don't keep the same arm free, and then people start trying to overlap and cover up, then all of a sudden you talk about that, and that wall starts to get chinks in it, and that's what's happened, and that was very unusual. for the Titans defense, especially, in the last several years. They've always prided themselves, and rightfully so, because they put it down, out there on the field, that they're very, very good and very stout against the run. They were not that game. They've got to get back to that this week.
Certainly, with Tart questionable on the injury report, a situation worth monitoring. Jeff Simmons did not have a designation on the final injury report that was produced today. Mac, as we talk, we'll obviously have more time to talk about the game, or I guess not much more time to talk about the game before the game's actually played. But just the what you have seen from the NFL and the vested interest in they have growing the game internationally. This is a series that's been going on for many, many years at this point. As you've mentioned many times, you've been a part of so many of them. How have you seen the impact of the NFL internationally change since they started playing these games overseas?
Well, it's immense. I mean, the first game that I was involved in coaching over here was in 1986. With the Bears and the Cowboys. It was preseason, but we were over here for a week, and it was like a Super Bowl. I mean, everybody was jammed up in here. And then, when I was with the Bears, Buck, we played in Gothenburg, Sweden. We played in Berlin. And every time was massive crowds, both before and during the game and after the game. And over here, this game exponentially, and they're going to grow it, we're going to put the NFL is going to play in Germany. They're talking about playing a game in Spain. I mean, internationally, you see what's downtown there right now, and the events that are around this, the events up here today. People, the Grove where we're staying with the team. The Grove, it's an hour out. That's an hour north. It's an hour outside of town, and still. The press corps and the people that showed up here, and then all the people that showed up here for the youth football stuff. I mean, it's pretty amazing. It really, really is, and it has grown internationally, and it's so well received everywhere it is. And London now, I mean, they built Tottenham, for NFL football also. I mean, that's what it was. That's what the process was in building Tottenham. The 10 years that it took from inception to getting it built. So it's been a massive, massive hit. Internationally, and it's only going to get bigger.
Well, what's a massive hit domestically and internationally is the Titans radio broadcast, of course, which Mac is a part of. You can hear the Titans and the Ravens on Sunday morning, bright and early. Blaine and Mickey back in the studio. Lee Company countdown to kickoff at 6 a.m. Central Time. I'll join them by phone, and then, of course, an hour before kickoff with Titans Countdown and Mac and Mike and the rest of the crew taking you through the Titans and the Ravens. My guy, I will see you down here at the pub tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and whatever you guys have planned. It's always a great pleasure to catch up with you, Mac. And if not, I will see you in the booth.
Yeah, I will see you for sure down there, Buck. And we'll catch up with you in the booth. Glad you're down here. Glad 104.5 The Zone has a presence down here. That's very, very. By the way, I got a little notice from Tammy Jacobs, that our really very good friend, our Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers was voted the #1 dealership going, and I'm very proud to be a member of that team, as I know you are too. I know D-Hop is, Don is, Ramon is, so we're all winning there.
Absolutely. We're always winning when Coach Mac hops on the line. That's the main man, Coach Dave McGinness, and as he mentioned, presented by Two Rivers Ford, powered by Ford, driven by people. They were voted the best car dealership by the Nashville Scene, the Best of Nashville Awards. Taking place, I think the award ceremony was on Tuesday. Lucas, we did not, you rightfully accused me of actively pandering too much on the internet, but we did not campaign to be the best radio show. Do you think we should make an active effort more next year?
I'm sorry,
Are you talking to Lucas, or are you talking to me?
Oh, I thought you were off the line, Mac.
You didn't even say goodbye to Coach Mac.
Wait,
you just
Buck, just because we're in London doesn't mean the communications don't work. I'm all up on the line. Yeah, you absolutely should. You absolutely should campaign for that. I will see you guys tomorrow. See you guys.
Okay, Mac. Lucas, I said goodbye to Mac. I said goodbye to Mac.
You thanked him, but I don't know. You didn't say goodbye. You didn't do it appropriately.
That's operator error. That's not on me. I'm flying blind out here. The sun is starting to set here in London as we get a little closer to 6 p.m. local time. The atmosphere here in the pub is, I don't know if you can hear it. You can see it if you're watching on Zone TV. But it is packed full of Titans fans. I'm up here on like a crow's nest type situation, so I'm overlooking the entirety of the bar. And for those of you watching on Zone TV, the scene that you see behind me is up here in the crow's nest with me as well, where the great Westwood One engineer Raul has been kind enough to help us in the morning show, have set us up very, very favorably today. Great atmosphere here at the Admiralty. What, you don't think that we should campaign next year to be the best radio show? You think we should just let people vote for us if they actually think we're the best?
We can campaign. We can walk around with picket signs.
When we we're going to protest the Best of Nashville Awards next year because we weren't included.
Where did those happen?
I think it was at the W this year. What do you think would happen if you, me, and Bert showed up with picket signs? We'll bring Jackson too, just for some extra muscle. You, me, Bert, and Jackson campaigning outside with picket signs outside of the W in the Gulch while the Bachelorettes roll by us and look with quizzical looks at us on their faces.
Well, we would be probably the 20th strangest thing happening in near Broadway, but we do need to think of a catchy phrase, a rhyme, for us to protest.
Oh, well, we will leave such organizational tasks to Robert Walsh. That is his area of expertise, though. If Bert is the one organizing us, you know that it is doomed from the start. We are hanging out here at the Admiralty in downtown London, broadcasting the radio show. 615-737-1045 is the number if you would like to join us domestically. We'd be happy to take your phone calls. Mac mentioned a couple of different things there, and you'll hear from Greg Cosell on Lamar Jackson's operation within the system a little later on. But in the meantime, just because I'm overseas does not mean we can stray from tradition. And our Friday tradition coming up next is a little bit of Friday Fire presented by Central Barbecue.
"40 years ago, we opened our doors with one mission in mind.
We'll be right back with the top 10 songs of 1983.
To sell quality American-made vehicles at a fair price.
You have arrived.
And we've loved every minute of the ride. Celebrating 40 years of Two Rivers Ford.
Welcome back live from the Admiralty here in London. Buck Reisen here with you until 1 o'clock Central Time, London time. That'll be about 7 p.m. Lucas is back there in the studio. I think Joseph has joined him as well. Friday tradition at 11:45 local anyway is to do a little Friday Fire. I got a lot of positive thoughts coming out of some airport travel yesterday and this morning. So why don't we go ahead and hit the music, please?
Buck Rising is one of the least positive people on the planet. So to combat that, we've installed a new segment where he's forced to be positive. Sponsored by Central Barbecue. This is Friday Fire.
Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got shit to do.
Indeed, it is made possible by Central Barbecue back there in Nashville, their Hillsborough Village location. EatCBQ.com for lunch, dinner, or all of your catering needs. Central Barbecue, a great partner here on the radio show. So my Friday Fire, Lucas, is the experience that I have here in London. Just being here, honestly. This is, I told you this is my 7th time being in London in some form or fashion. It's the 2nd time I've been here covering an NFL game in my life. I love the city. I love the history. I know a lot of people are critical of the fare. There are so many great places to eat here in London, even if beans and toast are not your thing. You are pro beans and toast, yes?
I support beans and toast. I do.
The amount of feedback that I got on my support of beans and toast was frankly disappointing. I would like people to be a little bit more open-minded about their breakfast options. The difference in bacon here is really the only step too far for me. Everything else, though, absolutely on the table.
I appreciate an English breakfast. Like bangers, the sausages, always good. The tomato is a nice touch. Like if there's one thing they do right over there, it's a traditional English breakfast. And then fish and chips are fine, but I imagine I'd get sick of fish and chips pretty quickly.
Well, it's you don't have to eat just that kind of food when you come over here. Okay.
I thought that's just what you do every day.
I'm going to a sushi restaurant tomorrow called Sexy Fish, and I'm very excited about that. Bullock was there last night. It looked like more of a club than it did a sushi restaurant. That's how it came to be on my radar. Keith Bullock wandering the streets of London. I think his family is over here with him. I saw Delaney Walker is here as well. Not here at the Admiralty, but I saw Delaney's in town for the game. They have brought a lot of the Titans' former greats across the pond with them for this particular game, as is the case. I'm sure both teams did. But my Friday Fire is just being here. I love history. I love the culture. I love all the different cultures meshing together in what a great melting pot that London is. So just good vibes about being across the pond.
Rub it in some more, why don't you? My Friday Fire is C.J. Stroud. Titans fans may not appreciate this. The rookie quarterback of the Houston Texans, who is enjoying a phenomenal start to his career. He officially has thrown the most completions by a rookie without an interception, breaking some of Cam Newton's rookie records. But C.J. Stroud, talking with the media this week, broke down the fourth quarter drive against the Falcons late. Now, remember, the Falcons won this game. They compiled a drive of their own at the end. Game-winning field goal by Younghoe Koo, and the Texans lost. But I just appreciated the way C.J. Stroud dove into what went into the Texans' final drive in the fourth quarter over the weekend.
Jesse Bates is a great player, super good, really instinctive. He almost picked me off on he did some weird 360 turn. It's the first time I've seen that, so now I got it in my bank, and hopefully he don't ever get me again. But playing against him keeps you honest, and I knew that he was going to try to make the play of the game and try to take it away. But previous film study, I was watching film on a big time third down situation, and just seeing that they were in this quarters matchy cover forward look, and I told Dalton to do a certain thing in his route that I thought would get us not only a first down but a touchdown. So we were on the same page, and I'm literally trying to break down exactly what I want from him in the huddle. And at first I don't think it registered, and then he was like, okay, I get it. So Dalton's really smart and made a hell of a route. But yeah, man, just being instinctive, just trying to put my guys in the best position to make plays and win games. And that instant, it was really special. And Bobby and them were really happy on the sideline. he was a part of that too. Talking on the sideline with him, I told him that I was thinking about doing it, and he was like, "Man, if you feeling it, go ahead and make a play." So made the play, and is what it is.
It's just football players talking football at the podium, but that was enjoyable to me. I like when guys dive in.
Because he told you something? He actually gave you something.
Yeah, actually something informative. And players, don't have an obligation. They don't owe us anything in these settings. But I do feel like everybody benefits from stuff like that. Remember when Cooper Kupp on the sideline with Bridget Condon of NFL Network, who we've had on the show?
Oh, yeah.
And just though I can't remember what the context was, maybe a game-winning play that he made, but the way he broke it down, it went viral. And when football players actually talk football like that at the podium in a digestible way like C.J. Stroud just did, that's my Friday Fire. I always really enjoy that. And C.J. Stroud seems like a very smart individual.
Don't tell the S2 testing that just up the road, or I guess down the road from us in Franklin. The mighty S2 testing told us that C.J. Stroud would be a nobody in the league, and all of a sudden he's the best rookie quarterback in football. I just get so discouraged when I hear a player like C.J. Stroud actually talking to us about football in a media setting, because I know immediately he's going to be pulled aside by his offensive coordinator and somebody say to him, "Don't ever speak that openly and honestly to the media ever again about football things, or we'll banish you to the shadow realm," or wherever it is, make you sit in timeout, something to that effect. Because Tannehill can do that stuff and has been so adept at being actively disinteresting for his entire NFL career. I know it's in there. I just want to talk to you about football, bud. And, it benefits them none to actually tell us what it is that's going on a play-in, play-out basis. What are you eating?
Beans on toast. No. Thought I'd take myself to you. Just bring it in in the lunchbox. No, it's a sausage, egg, and cheese sandwich.
That would be the most. Would that be the most egregious, bring your lunch to work situation? I saw somebody had tweeted recently, and I can't remember. It wasn't somebody with our station, but one of our sister stations in the building. Apparently, Joe Hunk had microwaved some kind of fish dish in the break room that had caused much consternation, which, by the way, is a banishable and I would argue a fireable offense. If you were to bring a fish-based dish to your office setting and heat it up in a community microwave, that is a shadow ban worthy punishment.
Have you had any Indian food? Because I do think the Indian food in England is very, very, very high quality.
Top tier. On my list of things, I'm going to do a pie here. Apparently, the Admiralty is famous for the various pies.
Ooh, nice.
Whether it's shepherd's pie or that kind of variation, not pizza pie, but the English variation of pie. I'm going to do that tonight, and I plan on doing some chicken masala tomorrow, because that is my favorite of the Indian food dishes, and I know that is something that especially right around my hotel, there's a lot of great Middle Eastern restaurants and a lot of great Indian food, which is top tier, at least in my food power rankings. Maybe I won't do football power rankings, but I'll do food power rankings with you sometime, maybe this summer.
Alonzo on the F&M Bank chat says, beans and toast sound terrible. Hat tip to Austin Stanley of A to Z Sports, who texted me and said, the Titans recipe for beans on toast is Roger McCreary helping Christian Fulton in coverage.
Beans, toast. Terrible. 615-737-1045. Look at that. It's time for the final hour. It's coming up next.
It is just about 12 o'clock. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The Tennessee Titans are officially in London for Sunday's matchup with the Baltimore Ravens. Wide receiver Traylon Burks, defensive back Elijah Molden, and linebacker Luke Gifford were ruled out and did not make the trip. Center Aaron Brewer and defensive lineman Tier Tart are both listed as questionable. The Lee Company countdown to kickoff hits the air at 6 a.m. on Sunday. Titans countdown is at 7:30 before an 8:30 a.m. kickoff with Mike Keith, Coach Mack, and the rest of the Titans radio crew from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. On Saturday, number 19 Tennessee hosts Texas A&M at Neyland Stadium. The Vols coming out of the bye week at 4-1. The Aggies come off a loss to Alabama at 4-2. Vol Network starts on The Zone at 12:30 before a 2:30 kickoff. With 2 regular season games remaining, Nashville Soccer Club hosts New England Revolution at Geodis Park Saturday night. Pre-game coverage starts at 7 p.m. It's a 7:30 kickoff. You can listen live on the 104.5 The Zone app by selecting the Nashville SC live stream. And tonight, the 104.5 The Zone high school football game of the week is at Mount Juliet. The Golden Bears host 5-2 Lebanon in a Region 4 6A clash. Pre-game coverage starts at 6:45 for a 7 p.m. kickoff. Friday Night Finals takes you home until 11 p.m. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour here from the Admiralty in downtown London. Thanks for hanging out here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Lucas is back there in Nashville. He's making it all happen. We're grateful to him. And Raul, the Westwood One engineer, is kind enough to get us on the air for both shows today. Send you back stateside for Blaine and Mickey 3HL after that. But in the meantime, we got one more hour here with you. The pub is popping here at the Admiralty on Trafalgar Square. More and more people starting to file in. A lot of Titans fans. They got Good Morning Football, even though it's not morning, here on the screen, where apparently they are hosting a Chris Johnson takeover, a CJ2K takeover. I saw CJ make his way through Heathrow today, and a lot more Titans who have been in London for the game, coming over for the game, going to be participating here at the Admiralty in the road rally that they are having for fans who made the trip on Saturday night. Last call for phone calls. Well, I guess last hour for phone calls. If you got them, 615-737-1045. That's the number if you want to jump in. Lucas would be happy to field your phone calls there, and we can talk some Titans and Ravens. So speaking of the Ravens, Lucas, you brought this up. We really haven't spent a lot of time discussing Baltimore other than the drops that they've had. Broke down a little bit of the new offense with Lamar and Todd Monken, the former Georgia coordinator. Long time coach across college and pro. He's had several stints in the pros as well as in college, but now comes to Baltimore as the OC this past offseason and really seems to be making strides, unlocking the next level of what Lamar Jackson is capable of. Now, if you're the Titans, you're hoping to still catch him while he's in this ramp-up phase, and it looks like they are going to have some opportunities to capitalize on. It's a coin flip. It's a straight-up coin flip. It's a neutral site. Both teams need it desperately. Titans in a little bit more of a desperate situation given that they sit at the bottom of the division right now. But as they look to overcome Baltimore here in London, how can they do so? And what is it about this new Todd Monken offense that's making Lamar Jackson so successful? Lucas, what do you associate with Todd Monken as an OC?
Balance.
Okay. And that's not something that we would say of the Ravens offense in the last couple of years, whether that's running with Lamar, whether that's being a run-heavy scheme, whether that's a variety of different ways that so much of their offense was simplified for Lamar in ways that apparently it didn't need to be that simplified for him. But Greg Roman had been running a little bit more of a training wheels operation for the first couple of years in Baltimore than has Todd Monken, and Todd Monken has asked Lamar Jackson to take the next step. Now the question was he going to be capable of doing so? And thus far the early returns, though the Ravens are 3-2 and have not had a perfect start to the season, The quarterback is far from the issue. We broke this down on the latest episode of The Install with Greg Cosell of NFL Films. We did a pod Wednesday before I hopped on the bird and came over to London. So Greg explained in his terms what he's seeing from Lamar on the tape. Let's see.
You know, I spoke to a coach last Friday afternoon who knows Bobby Petrino well. And so obviously he knew when Petrino coached him at Louisville. And he said Petrino basically had him running an NFL offense with a lot of responsibility, and he handled it with no problem at all. And again, this is no knock on Greg Roman. This team was a playoff team for years. Lamar is as dynamic a runner at the position as we've ever seen. So you certainly don't want to take that away from him and say, don't run. But, you know, I think that the next step in the minds of many, right or wrong, is that let's really develop a structured pass game, because you know what? He's really not a bad passer. You know, he just looks different throwing a ball than a lot of quarterbacks. So the natural inclination is, oh, he's got a little bit of a kind of a funny delivery, but he can make throws. And, you know, I think he's seeing it really, really well. And I think that whenever you're in a new offense, that to me is sort of the first thing, is how you kind of master the different route concepts and how you're being asked to read those things based on what, you know, the defense. Because just so people understand, quarterbacks are not reading 6-7 players, Buck. It's not humanly possible. You know, they start off with a very basic thing. Is it middle of the field open, middle of the field closed? You start there. And then based on your route concept and what's viewed as the primary and the secondary, you're just working off a few players. You know, you don't, you know, if you're working, you know, to trips, let's say it's 3-by-1, okay? And your primary read is to trips, to the 3 receiver side. What's happening on the backside with the corner, that's not even relevant to you. You don't need to understand, well, is that corner playing man technique or zone? It doesn't even matter.
So that's Greg Cosell of NFL Films expanding on what he's seeing from Lamar Jackson in this offense. Lamar, for what it's worth, so far on the season, has a success rate as an individual of 51.8%, meaning that he is successful on 51.8% of his plays. His EPA per play is .015 on the season. He is completing 71.4% of his passes. His expected completion percentage, Lucas, coming into the season, or at least through the first couple of games, because he has exceeded his expected completion percentage in all 5 of these games to start the season. Expected completion percentage of 66.6 based on the opportunities. Lamar is completing 71.4, and that's with the drops.
But you have a question for me?
No, I thought you had thoughts.
No, you laid it out.
Okay, very good. So how can the Ravens, or rather how can the Titans stymie this Ravens offense? Well, that's to capitalize. I mean, Mike Vrabel talking about the lack of turnovers, and you'll hear from the head coach here in just about 10 minutes when we play you some audio from his availability today at their training ground, an hour and a half outside of London in the Grove, the area that they're staying at.
Can I say I love that you're calling it a training ground now.
What am I supposed to call it?
I don't know. It's very British of you.
That's the term, is it not?
No, it is. It is. I just love that. You go overseas and it's no longer a practice facility. It's a training ground.
Well, listen, I try to be coachable. I try to be adaptable, Lucas. And, you know, here it's called a training ground. If it was called a practice facility, I'd call it a practice facility. But, yes, training ground is indeed the term. For the Titans, you know, Lamar's going to get his to an extent, whether that's on the ground or through the air. The place where they have to be able to capitalize is if the Ravens continue this trend of drops that they have. You have to be in good position to make plays on the ball. You have to try and force turnovers, man. They are not forcing fumbles at a rate where the coaching staff expects them to be. They are not disrupting the quarterback beyond sacks, like they're not knocking the ball loose when he's dropping back to pass or when he's getting ready to release the ball. They're not getting any opportunities for those incomplete pass / forced fumble calls to go in their favor. They're just not creating enough right now. And what are you more concerned about if you're a Titans fan? And frankly, I'd be curious to know how Titans fans feel about this matchup. Where do you think the matchup, if anywhere, favors Tennessee in this game? because there are matchups to be found and matchup advantages to be found, but of course health is something that's kind of in flux. We brought up the injury report earlier. Traylon Burks, Elijah Molden, Luke Gifford, all players who were ruled out and did not even make the trip. Teair Tart is questionable for this game, and we saw how big a difference his absence made in Tennessee trying to stop the run. You know, I think for me, the fact that they are not getting much disruption from their edge guys, the fact that Arden Key and Harold Landry together are not factoring in. It would be okay if Landry was a little slower to get up to speed or slower to have an impact if you could rely on Arden Key through the first 5 games. But I would not call him a consistently impactful player thus far. I think that there are moments where you see how this thing is supposed to look. And, you know, you can go into a season imagining what a unit would look like if it's completely healthy and then understand by the time you get 5 games, 4 games in, that that's almost inevitably not going to be the case. But I think the bigger concern for me is that Arden Key is not, they can't lean on Arden Key while Harold kind of takes his time to get up to speed. And, you know, he gave a very brutally honest assessment in the locker room after Indianapolis with all of us, Arden Key did, about not only his individual performance but where they are as a group. If this defense isn't going to be special, Lucas, I don't know what I'm not going to feel good about their chances heading into any game, not just a game against the Ravens where you know they have had success against Lamar, but you know Lamar has had their number plenty of times as well. I just need to know what I can consistently rely upon them to do beyond make field goals. And maybe I can't rely on them to do anything beyond that right now.
Crowd's going to love Nick Folk on Sunday. His jersey sales are going to skyrocket
through the roof.
Sunday. But
you think there is a proclivity to like the kickers and punters around here?
100%. That was something John Sadak was talking about with us yesterday from Westwood One. That's what he was most fascinated to see when he gets there. It's his first game, or first time calling a game in London, is what the crowd responds to. Because he said, like, if I'm watching a cricket game for the first time ever, and I don't know anything about cricket, I feel like I'll react differently than what people who normally watch cricket will react to, right? Like, I don't know what's a big deal and what's not. Like, you know, it's hard to know what truly is a big moment. Like a 6-yard run on first down, you know, do people that don't watch football appreciate the importance of staying ahead of the sticks? Or do they like to see the guy kick the ball 55 yards through the uprights or on a kickoff out the back of the end zone? So that'll be interesting. But all that to say, how many games in a row have the Titans scored under 30 points? Can you tell me?
So a whole season plus 4 thus far. I will say 25 games.
23 games.
23 games.
23. It's the longest active streak in the NFL, and it's the longest streak in NFL history. So this defense has to be relied upon. And if it's not, then Titans just aren't going anywhere. Like it's
so am I
that
being
simple.
unfair of the defense? Because I am holding them to a ridiculously high standard, and the standard for the Titans offense all of a sudden has been, hey, score 6 points. Or 16 points. That's a good day as long as you move the football. I just think our standards for these two parts of the team that are of equal importance are so drastically different when we discuss them.
That's the way this team is built. Kevin Byard talked about it after was it the Saints game? I can't remember which one it was this season where he acknowledged, yes, like it is on us in these type of games to win it. Like it's like the Titans of the late 90s, early 2000s. You know, they need to win 17-14. That's just what this team is right now.
615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation. We'll take your phone calls coming up next. We'll also get into the Titans, what Mike Vrabel had to say at their training ground practice today at the Grove here in London. We're broadcasting live from the Admiralty in downtown London. You're listening back there in Nashville on 104.5 The Zone.
So this is a small bird, too, for
That's
someone
right.
that's never seen a bobwhite before. It's this little round softball.
That's right. Yeah, they're not much bigger than my fist. They've got little legs, but they're a ground nesting, ground dwelling bird. If they never have to fly in their life, they wouldn't. Right? They just do that to get away from hawks and owls for the most part, or hunters. What they need is largely herbaceous plant communities. Right? So they need wildflowers. They need a small proportion of grasses. I don't need vast grasslands, right? I need stuff that most people would call weeds. Those are providing good brood cover, good nesting cover, a lot of insects, right? That's what chicks need to develop early.
Bridgestone Firestone is a quail focus or focal area. So tell us a little bit why.
Yeah, it's largely because there are very few places that have wild quail in the state of Tennessee anymore. And there's dozens of different factors that lead into that, right? Everybody wants to jump right to predators, but it's a habitat issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a landscape change, whether we're talking about development or whether we're talking about fire not being on the landscape anymore, or fields and young forests progressing into closed canopy forest, right? So the farm, just by nature of it being an open landscape that's been maintained that way, has held on to some birds. And compared to most other places in the state, we're one of the very few. On top of that, the potential for growing that population, it's higher here than just about anywhere else.
Live from the Admiralty here in London. Buck Rising here with you for just about 40 more minutes. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We'd be happy to have you. Titans and the Ravens squaring off at Tottenham on Sunday. Going to be an interesting game for a variety of reasons. Tennessee feels the more desperate in this game, right? I think we can all kind of agree that the circumstance at the bottom of the division, even though the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that shouldn't have beat the Baltimore Ravens, beat the Baltimore Ravens last week. Do you know Pittsburgh is leading the AFC North right now? You cannot kill Mike Tomlin.
That division has not gone the way people thought it would.
Well, and we'll see how much changes now that Burrow looks more right? Because we all, of course, had expectations that it would be, probably between Cincinnati and Baltimore, Cleveland. Deshaun Watson is scheduled to miss another game, is he not?
Yeah, Deshaun Watson has been ruled out with his shoulder injury. The bye week, not enough for Deshaun. Daniel Jones, on that note, also ruled out with a neck injury. Giants are loaded with injuries, and they play the Bills. Things just seem like they're going from bad to worse for the Giants.
But we can agree that Tennessee is in a more desperate situation. Must wins in week 6, I think we're certainly starting to get there. And on the heels of dropping an important divisional game, a conference win would. You can interact with the show via the phones or the F&M Bank chat as you choose. We got Boudreaux, who's calling us from Dixon, up next. What's happening?
The Titans defense, they're giving up too many points. Right now, I think the Titans, through the few games we played, I think we're averaging like 17.6 points a game. And we're giving up, I think, right around 18 to 19 points a game on defense. So my thing is, we've got all these teams down in the NFL, Miami Dolphins, putting up 70 points on offense. And here we are. We have these weapons. We brought in Hopkins. We've got a a first-round draft pick in Traylon Burks who can't even hardly see the field. We've got some good talent out there. Chigagonkwe coming off a good year. You know what I'm saying? There's no reason why we should be giving the Titans a pass. We're paying Ryan Tannehill all this money, and we're literally, every week it seems to be radio shows are talking about how the Titans defense. If we're scoring 17 points a game, then we're definitely giving them a pass if we're putting it all on the defense. If we hold a team to 19 points on any given Sunday, we should probably win that game in the NFL, and that's just my point.
No, I'm not disputing that at all. I guess where is your lack of where are you seeing the lack of pressure being put on the offense? Because I feel like all I've done since I've moved here, since I took this job covering the Tennessee Titans, is talk about how the offense continues to not be the focal point, not be the thing that pulls them forward beyond 2020 really.
He's gone.
Oh, okay. I assumed he was. I think there's plenty of pressure being put on the offense. The problem is, here's the thing. All those skill position moves that you made, all those best laid plans, they're undermined when your offensive coordinator has to limit what he is able to call or run because he is helping the tackles as much as he is in the protection plan. If you listen to the Cosell podcast every week, and I don't know how many of you do on a regular basis, I do know that it's the biggest podcast that we have on the Zone, which always makes me happy to see. And of course, Greg's insight and analysis is it comes at a premium, especially when you can get it specifically focused on your favorite team the way that Titans fans have the opportunity to do with said podcast. Greg points it out all the time. He's convinced Tim Kelly has more of an offense that he wants to run. And the reason why Tim Kelly's offense languishes or maybe is stunted to the degree that it is for two reasons. One, I think it is an offense that Derrick Henry, you still have to do some catering to Derrick Henry and who he is and what it requires. Now you could call that being, hamstrung by him, essentially. You could call it being held back by that. I would obviously never make the case that the Tennessee Titans are a team held back by Derrick Henry's presence, but I do understand from a coordinator perspective and all the different personnel groupings that you're trying to use, how Derek might provide some limitations that otherwise don't exist. But I do think that the personnel situation, when you're helping your tackles, Dillard and Hubbard has been better than Dillard is, but he's not been great. He's not like an above average right tackle by any stretch of the imagination. They are trying to keep the quarterback upright. In doing so, they have less routes that they're sending out into their offensive game plan. And in doing so, it makes them a hell of a lot easier to defend when guys just aren't open because you're running 3-man or 2-man route concepts and keeping tight ends and slot receivers into chip and block. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Travis is calling us from this side of the pond, from Germany, as a matter of fact. Hey, Travis, how are you?
How you doing, Mr. Rising?
I'm swell.
It's kind of funny now that there's not going to be that much of a gap, but I imagine it's probably 2 times the gap since it's going back to Lucas and then back to you. So do I get an extra 30 seconds instead of getting kicked off?
No, because you've already used it, so you better move fast.
Nope, I'll allow it.
Look, I just wanted to say, Buck, ever since you came on the air, since I've been over here stationed, you have been worth listening to. I mean, I miss the normal folks, but I know how the radio business works. But anyway, being stationed over here, it's good to listen to you because I can go straight to dinner and then straight to bed. So, but hope you're having a good time. I'll get off here because it's €1 a minute or like £1.50. Lucas, you kick butt all the daggum time. All right, Mr. Panzica, I forgot your last name already. Kidding, Mr. Rising. Have a good day.
Thank you for the call, Travis. We do appreciate it.
And thank you for your service.
Oh, certain military service? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, you didn't catch that?
No, I did. It is getting more and more crowded in the pub. So for those of you watching on Zone TV, I'm literally cupping my my earpiece to my ear to try and hear phone calls over the background. So if I miss a note or two, I apologize. But yes, thank you, Travis, for the kind words, and as Lucas said, for your service. As far as the different ways where this team matches up, we had a caller bring up earlier the red zone defense and the points per game that they're allowing. Now, the Titans have not been as good as you would like for them to be, but again, the greater burden is obviously on the defense to perform, and when you have an offense that languishes or struggles, makes it look as difficult as the Tennessee Titans at least have in the last couple of weeks, you understand that the scrutiny is going to be amped up. We've talked about this before, prior to the Bengals game. Everything is hyper-scrutinized, hyper-analyzed, attention drawn to more than ever. Everything is more visceral when you can't score points. And the Titans are a great example of that. Now, opponent red zone scoring percentage. Lucas, do you know who the number 1 team in football is?
It's not the Ravens, is it?
It is the Ravens.
I knew it was good. I didn't realize it was actually number 1.
Well, let me clarify. This is the number 1 in terms of touchdowns. This does not account for field goals, but touchdowns allowed in the red zone, which of course is an area that this team struggles with. The Baltimore Ravens are first. They allow a touchdown in the red zone only 25% of the time through the first 5 games of the season. The top 5 looks like this: Baltimore, Tampa Bay, the Jets, the Titans, and the Falcons. Titans allowing touchdowns in the red zone on 35.29% of opportunities. Again, red zone scoring for this purpose, not including field goals. Those numbers would be different if you were factoring in field goals from the 20 inside. Lucas, you had some notes on the Ravens' red zone offense in particular as well, because that has been a place where they have excelled, yes?
Yeah, Ravens have had one of the best red zone offenses in the league. Titans are near the bottom, tied for 29th.
And so, we've talked a lot about the different ways that this has come to pass, right? That it really just comes down to execution. They have had plays to score points in the red zone. They haven't pulled them off. And, whether you want to say, well, there's only so much they can do with the personnel, I'm not willing to afford them that kind of excuse. And Mike Vrabel, speaking today about hitting the ground running, certainly understands the importance of them bringing a sense of urgency to the practice that they had today, and also to the opponent, knowing that they struggle with fast starts, and they sure as hell could use one against Baltimore on Sunday.
Really, really well. Appreciate our ops staff, how smoothly everything ran, our ability to get in here early, to have breakfast ready and meetings and everything ready to go. I thought that there was a little lull at the beginning of practice, which is probably was expected. And then after we started stretching and moving around a little bit, I thought it was exactly what we needed. And our players responded, and I thought we had a good day.
So that's Mike Vrabel talking about, just the operations, because they landed about the same time that I did this morning, and they went right to work. I had the benefit of a shower and a nap before I had to do anything today. Titans did come in with an emphasis to legitimately hit the ground running with a variety of different activities that the team had to take place or had to participate in beyond practice. They've got some fan engagement stuff. They've got some international community engagement stuff that they're doing out at the Grove today and tomorrow beyond, the actual work that they're set to get in practice and in meeting rooms today. Vrabel also talked about the idea of getting back even, right? Trying to get to 500 before the bye and the importance of that. We understand that the Titans will have a home game when they come out on the other side of the bye, their Week 7 bye, and Week 8 hosting the Falcons, the first Oilers throwback game. But then they have 3 straight road games and a Thursday night football game in the middle of that to create a short week from Pittsburgh to Tampa Bay. To create a mini bye between Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay. This was Mike Vrabel talking about the importance of getting even and the opportunity against the Ravens to do so.
Well, it would be, it'd be nice to get back even, and then give ourselves a chance after the bye to put something together. I don't disagree with you one bit.
Well, it's good that he doesn't disagree, because they certainly need every bit of advantage that they can have against an opponent. It's just, I love that this game is being played. I love that there's still semblances of the AFC South, or rather AFC Central rivalry that we've talked about with. I know you spent some time with Brad Hopkins on. I know we talked about Dr. Kevin Dyson earlier in the week about it. The amount of vitriol. We spent a little time with it with NWI talking about this week earlier too. I do love this game in particular. I know fans are not crazy about the idea of the significance of this game and it being a home game for Tennessee being played abroad. But I honestly think, I know the Titans are good at home. We talked about the importance of that and how they need to break through this road game wall that they have been facing. But I honestly think that level playing field gives you as good an opportunity to get one against the Ravens as humanly possible, because it does feel like, at least my inclination of this game going in, is that they're going to have to, if they're going to win it, they're going to have to kind of steal one. And maybe that's just, I'm a little bit pessimistic about them right now with all the different issues that we're outlining and stuff that we've talked about, corrections that they need to try and make but haven't been able to do so through the first 5 weeks. So I am more down on their chances against Baltimore on Sunday than I might have otherwise been had we seen more signs of life from them. But it does feel like they're going to kind of have to steal one here, bud.
Yeah, like I asked you yesterday, do the Titans just have to hang around in this thing the way the Steelers did and steal it late? And you said, no, that can't be the approach. And I agree that can't be the approach, but I feel like that's how this game's going to go. Like, I feel like this is going to be a low-scoring game. And I hate to say that because that's almost like you're relying on Ravens miscues, right? The Steelers were able to take advantage.
No, but you are.
Right. That's what the Steelers were able to do. The Colts were able to do that. Gardner Minshew stayed efficient, stayed level throughout the whole game. Justin Tucker misses a field goal. Colts able to steal a win in Baltimore. Steelers able to steal a win at home against the Ravens with so many mistakes in a game they had no business losing. So you almost hate coming in with that, thinking you're going to need the Ravens to shoot themselves in the foot to steal something late. But I don't know. It just feels like that's the type of game that we're setting up for. And as I say that, maybe it'll be the first 34-30 type of game the Titans have been in a very long time.
Well, that's the thing. Like, the advantage of the London series, or of a neutral site series, given that the Colts and Patriots are playing in Germany. Who else is playing a Germany game this year?
Oh, it's Colts, Patriots, and then I want to say the Chiefs are heading overseas this season.
I do think the Chiefs were involved in a Germany game last year, but I can't remember.
Dolphins and Chiefs. No, I don't know that. I don't think the Chiefs played. Was there a game in Germany last year? I don't know that there was.
Well, yeah, because Brady and the Bucks played in Munich, and of course the scene was electric there for people singing and dancing in the background and having a great time throughout the course of that.
Yeah, Dolphins Chiefs are in Frankfurt in week 9, and then the Colts and Patriots are, I believe, also at Frankfurt Stadium in week 10.
So, I mean, I guess, when you ask me that question, it's a fair pushback by you. Like, can that be the approach? And me saying, well, no, it shouldn't be the approach, but maybe they have no choice. I just don't know, for a lack of better options. Like, in any football game, you're talking about, all right, some breaks need to go your way. We spend so much time doing basically week-long infomercials from game to game as a part of, not quite 24-hour sports programming, but I guess we are a 24-hour sports programming entity on the radio station in some form or fashion. So you can talk about everything that you want to talk about from a matchup, from a schematic standpoint, all the different places where you think you may see opportunities for each team, and ultimately some of it comes down to, in hockey they call it puck luck, but just the way that the ball bounces and how many different opportunities can you capitalize on that your opponent might miss in any given game and how those things accrue. I just hate the idea of them leaning on, as you said correctly, the reticence that you have to use that as analysis. But to this point, does this team deserve any kind of greater analysis than, they're going to have to catch some breaks that the Ravens are going to literally drop to them for them to be able to have the best chance or give themselves the best chance in the game. I hate that as analysis, but ultimately that just kind of feels like where they're at right now.
I think the London games, I'd be interested. What's the highest scoring game that's ever happened in London? I don't know if that's something that's easy to find, but I'd be fascinated.
It probably would not be. Given that we only have, about 15 minutes left in the radio show, we can endeavor to find something like that for people during the commercial break. By the way, 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to jump in, we'll have one more segment for us to take phone calls. Blaine and Mickey, 3HL, still stateside, and they can provide you with an opportunity to jump in there with them.
I've got it here.
Do you?
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay.
Last year, the Vikings beat the Saints 28-25 at Tottenham Hotspur. Jags 23, Dolphins 20, that was 2021. Falcons 27, Jets 20, that was 2021. So Panthers 37, Bucks 26 back in 2019. You can go back to 2008, 37-31, Saints beating the Chargers. So maybe that's a lazy thing to point at, is that just because it's being played internationally, it's a slugfest and 16-14.
Yeah, I understand why you're going that, especially with these two teams, given their miscues. But I think it has the opportunity, I think that missed tackles are going to be a factor. I think them playing on this turf that a lot of people have talked about. Of course, Tottenham is a grass field for the soccer matches that they play, and they bring in the purpose of this Tottenham Stadium, this new Tottenham Stadium, was to be able for them to be able to transition from playing surface to playing surface seamlessly, and for it to be specifically set up for NFL football games to be played. They'll be playing on turf as opposed to, when Tottenham plays, they play on the grass surface.
That's almost cruel. Doesn't it seem almost cruel for the amount of football players that, want grass over turf and say that so publicly? Say, you're telling me we're going to a stadium that is grass and they're literally going to put turf in just for us?
They are literally ripping the grass out from under them to put them on the turf field. That is correct.
Which I understand. It's because the two sports are different and the playing surfaces are different. Brad Hopkins was talking about playing in Mexico City in a soccer stadium, on a soccer field that just had divots and holes all over the place that you're literally having to avoid stepping over while you're playing full speed as an NFL left tackle.
You got rocks hanging in the grass and stuff like that. You're trying not to slip. You make sure you have the right cleats on, all these different things. But there are so many different variables that come into this game. It's why I think it's a coin flip. You may not feel great about what the Titans have done so far this season. You may be pessimistic about their overall 2023 outlook, and I think that you would largely be justified in having those thoughts. But in this specific game, where it is literally just who has the most beneficial opportunities, beneficial breaks going their way beyond just simply execution. If you can steal one against an opponent that I think most people probably think is better than you and maybe better than you, all that matters is if you're the Titans, they're not better than you on Sunday. We'll see. Last call for phone calls here as we broadcast live from the Admiralty. The sun is down, the pub is popping. We'd be happy to have your participation before we wrap things up here live from London on 104.5 The Zone. Shoes on a Friday. We're wrapping things up here live from the Admiralty in downtown London. Incredibly grateful for the opportunity to hang out here and for the Admiralty for hosting us. Ramon, Kayla, and Will, myself, as we do the radio shows, for hosting Titans fans, of which they are in abundance down there. Pub also starting to fill up. The English national team playing an international friendly against Australia. I'm actually going tonight. Well, tonight is in about an hour. London time. It's 6:45 p.m. here in London. I know it's just about 1 o'clock back there at home, but it's going to be a great experience for me. I've already asked Lucas what I need to know and the inevitability that I make a misstep at my first football match and accidentally get beat up on or drink spilled on or something like that. He has said that I should be fine in what it is that I have to go to, which seems like I'm being set up. It's like that Star Wars meme. It's a trap. I feel like I'm being set up.
I wish you had watched the David Beckham documentary series on Netflix. It's really, really good, but it definitely, whenever we think that we have it toxic as far as fan bases are concerned, you'll watch something like that and you're reminded of how much worse it can really be. They go over when David Beckham got a red card in the 1998 World Cup and England goes down to 10 men. They get eliminated in penalties and David Beckham became like the villain of the nation. And some of the things that were sent to him and his family and just the way it lasted for months and months, just so brutal. And so I definitely wanted you to watch that before you went to your first international English soccer game.
Well, you had told me that you enjoyed it before, and I've seen the clip that's going around of him absolutely roasting Posh Spice in that interview where she's talking about blue-collar family.
Saying that she was working class. Yeah.
That's right. He pokes his head in. What kind of car did your dad drive you to school in? What kind of car? She keeps trying to answer the question. What kind of? She goes, it's
Rolls-Royce.
You got to understand the circumstance. And then finally he badgers her into saying, oh, it was a Rolls-Royce that my dad used to bring me to school in the 80s.
It is really good. The whole docuseries is really good. It goes from his whole playing career to being a fashion icon and celebrity to coming over to America.
So speaking of soccer, we got some Nashville SC action over the weekend. Also high school football tonight, but why don't, Lucas, you give us a quick SC preview?
Tomorrow night at Geodis Park, Nashville hosting New England Revolution. We're on the air at 7, kickoff at 7:30. Myself and Jalil Anibaba. We're on the 104.5 The Zone app, where you can listen to us by selecting the Nashville SC live stream. We're going to go to terrestrial radio once Vol Network coverage gets off the air at about 8:30 after the Texas A&M game. Of course, if you're watching on Apple TV, you can always listen to the home radio broadcast by toggling that on the audio feature. But Nashville just looking to snap back into form. 2 regular season games left. They've already clinched a playoff spot. Seeding is not really an issue. They kind of are where they are. Just looking to get back into that goal-scoring form that saw them reach the Leagues Cup final. And then tonight, high school football. Brad Hopkins is hopping on with me. We're going to Mount Juliet, who is undefeated, and hosting Lebanon in a critical region clash. So we'll be on the air for that at 6:45.
Well, that'll all be great. Lucas doing double duty this weekend. Grateful to Lucas for making it happen. Again, thanks to Raul, who has been helping us here courtesy of Westwood One, get us on the air and get the morning show on the air, and for the Admiralty for hosting. Our time here has almost come to an end. Perhaps Austin Powers will give us some polls, yes?
Oh, yeah, baby. This poll update is shagadelic, baby. I have a Danger Powers here. I'm Austin Powers. Danger is my middle name, baby. This is one poll I'm interested in, baby. It's shagadelic. I haven't had an update in 2023 yet. Wink, wink. Oh, behave. Take it away, Lucas Panzica. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
You know, I used that one when Lindsay Raleigh was in studio. I should have saved it. for today, but we'll double down.
Yeah, well, like we say, if we were any good at this, maybe we would have been able to make it happen in reasonable time. What are the polls this week, Lucas, presented by Two Rivers Ford?
Presented by Two Rivers, as you said, who sells below MSRP on any non-specialty new Ford. What will be the better football game, Titans versus Ravens or England versus Australia? 69% say Titans-Ravens.
I happen to think that England and Australia tonight is going to be absolutely electric. But maybe I'm biased because this is my first actual football game that I will be attending, and then an American football game that I'll be working on Sunday. Perhaps it's because I'm excited that I actually get to drink at this one.
I look forward to your returns on what the better, more enjoyable environment is between those two. Because I'm sure.
Certain I already have a gut feeling of which it might be, so I'm trying to keep my biases in check.
What will be the Titans' biggest advantage against the Ravens? V-Love says it's straight up Mike Vrabel over Harbaugh in a fist fight.
That's really the only one that I could see. I would have said the rush defense, but that sure as hell wasn't the case for them against the Colts. Their advantage here is their advantage here in London is that it is here in London, and that the London game is a coin flip for everybody involved.
Who is most likely to pick up their first loss this weekend? Several undefeated teams in college football playing some big games, including Oregon versus Washington. 2:30 kickoff, so it'll be on at the exact same time as the Vols, I believe, on ABC. But 42% of the audience says it'll be USC losing to Notre Dame. 21% say it'll be Washington. 17% say Oregon. 20% say UNC against Miami.
If USC loses to this Notre Dame team, this poorly coached Notre Dame team, fire Lincoln Riley.
I might go UNC here. I feel like this could be a spot where Miami bounces back. UNC's defense has not been tested this year. Drake May, though, could single-handedly bring this team to a win, as he has done.
Wait. You said you'd go UNC, but you mean to say you would go Miami there?
I mean to say I could go UNC. I could see UNC grabbing their first loss of the season against Miami.
Oh, okay. Got it. The phrasing on the poll had me confused. Yes. UNC is an interesting one. I mean, Cristobal could certainly use it optically, but as we've talked about, North Carolina, the defensive improvement from year over year, where Gene Chizik was a laughingstock last year, certainly has given at least Drake May the opportunity to have some of these incredible performances because they're staying more in games.
Do you support beans on toast? 86% say no.
I am in support of the traditional English breakfast. I think most of you are closed-minded. I think you need to expand your horizons. God knows we eat weirder things in Tennessee than beans on toast.
That's probably true. Those are the
polls? Yes, excellent. That's the show live from London. We are not done with our coverage of Titans and Ravens, of course. I will be on the pregame show with Jimmy Wyatt. Titans countdown 15 minutes before kickoff here at Tottenham. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Enjoy the football this weekend. I'm sure as hell going to enjoy what time I have in London. Appreciate Lucas and Raul making it happen, and everybody else who made this possible, including the Ingram Agency. I will talk to you Sunday. Well, I won't talk to you Sunday. Sam Phelan has you on A to C Sports Prime Time, so I'll see you at some point. Not next week on 104.5 The Zone.